Hey everybody, Dan Shinder here on Drum Talk TV. Thank you for joining me and my guest, Owen Davey, who's coming to us from Stratford, just outside Stratford in Canada, and I'm in Globe, Arizona, 100 miles east of Phoenix, up in the mountains. And this is, for a change, this is a pre-recorded interview, but I'd still like you to all chime in and tell us where you're watching from. And if you have any questions for Owen, go ahead and leave them in the comments, because when this publishes, I'm going to send him the link and he'll be able to check and answer some questions. And we're going to have a lot of fun. So if you have not seen Owen play yet, let me give you a quick preview. He's a 15-year-old multi-instrumentalist who, as you see in this video coming up, plays a few different instruments. Those of you who are Dream Theater fans may recognize this tune. So let's get a quick preview, then we'll talk to Owen. So Owen, here's my first question. What instrument did you start with? You're only 15, and I remember back in the old days when I was 15, I was a pretty good musician too, but watching you play the different instruments, I have no idea, no guess at what you started with. So what's your first instrument that you first learned?
I started out with piano when I was around, I think I was 6 when I started taking lessons.
Cool.
And I think for me it was a really good start for me because it kind of gave me a bit of theory and just let me explore music. Like, I don't know, it got me into it, yeah.
That's great. I actually wish I started with piano for exactly that reason. I didn't really learn much about melodic music theory until I started when I was 7, and I really didn't start to learn about melodic theory till I was maybe 14 when I was playing a concert band at school. So it was kind of backwards and it was kind of a challenge. However, learning the drums first for me was really helpful in, of course, you know, the natural things like timing, but also when I got into doing sessions and producing, it really helped as a producer to a degree. So at what age did you pick up the drums? How long did you play piano for? And well, maybe drums wasn't the next instrument. What was the next instrument?
Well, actually, around the same time that I started playing piano, I did mess around with drums. We got an electric kit to start out. Yeah, and I believe that was the next instrument that I started.
Cool.
And I guess when around a couple months before my first video, which was Orion, we got an acoustic kit for the first time. And when I got that acoustic kit, I really started exploring the drums and practicing a lot more and taking it a lot more seriously. So that was basically getting into the drums when I was what caused me to be able to play all of the instruments together.
Oh.
Yeah.
Great. And was it the structural element of the drums that helped with that?
I'm not sure exactly what it was. I don't know. I guess just having learning a second instrument, I kind of knew that, well, I can do this with all these other ones too if I put the time into it, you know?
That's cool. What came next, bass or guitar?
That was guitar. Yeah, it was guitar. Cool. I believe I started 3.5 years ago on guitar.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I started taking lessons from a guy that also plays a little bit of drums and bass too, so
cool.
Kind of helped get into those too.
And did learning guitar first make learning bass easier? Because you already had a lot of
sure.
That's
great. I had all the notes down and everything. I felt like the only big difference was the technique.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's kind of, I don't know, it's pretty similar.
Yeah, fundamentally very similar, sure. So I'm going to call out each instrument, and as I do, and if you need a moment to think about each answer, that's fine. Okay. But I'd like you to tell me who your biggest, not necessarily your first, but your biggest influence is on each instrument. I think I know what it might be on the drums, but let's start with that. Who's your biggest influence on the drums?
Well, I have a lot of different influences
Sure.
because I try to take from like a little bit from every genre. But I
Good.
feel like closest to what I like, one of my biggest influences would probably be I'd say Steve Judd from Carnival.
Oh,
I don't know if
wow.
you've heard of him.
Cool.
I think his playing is super cool and inspires me to use the drums to take even like simple parts of songs and make it flow completely different. Like just yeah,
Yeah.
going around the song and changing it up. Yeah.
That's great. I was going to guess Mike Portnoy only because
Oh
of the
yeah.
familiarity I have with what I've seen you do so far. But that's great. That's
Yeah,
a great one.
there's definitely a
Definitely.
lot of influence from him too,
Yeah.
and older players too, like John Bonham and like from classic rock and stuff is a big influence for me too. So
That's
yeah,
great. That's great.
yeah.
How about bass? Who are some of your top and your number one bass players that you're influenced by and that you admire?
I'd say Geddy Lee is a big one because I really like his bass lines that they don't just follow the root. It kind of adds to the song. And it's totally different
Yeah.
sometimes to what the rest of the band's playing. I
Yeah.
think that's really cool.
Good point.
And then another one would also be Justin Chancellor from Tool,
Yeah.
too. I think his bass sound is amazing. It's a big inspiration for how I want it to sound in my mixes and everything. And I think the way that he plays is super cool.
That's great. Have
I
you
like his
seen
style.
either of those guys perform live in person?
I haven't seen Geddy Lee play, but I've seen Justin Chancellor. And I got to meet him, too, which was super cool.
Oh,
Two
that's great.
separate times. Yeah.
And I forgot to ask, how about Mr. Judd?
Mr. Who, sorry?
Judd from Carnival.
Oh, I haven't met any of those guys yet. That would be super cool.
Did you
But
see him play
yeah.
in person though, in concert yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they were planning on doing an American tour. I'm pretty sure. And if that ever happens sometime soon, I'd love to see that.
That's
Yeah.
great. If, and I don't know if this will happen, but if Getty does something with somebody,
Hmm.
I think he'll record some more. I don't know if he'll go out on the road, but if he does, it's worth going to see him live. I saw Rush
Yeah.
probably 20 times or something from 1978 until their last tour. Yeah, huge Rush fan.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Cool.
How about keyboards?
Well, there's a lot of like jazz piano players that I like. Like I'm not. Well, I guess the main one for me would be Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater too.
Right?
Yeah, that's like the main keyboard player that I think is cool. I think like how he adds certain sounds, like even if they'd be weird on their own, but if he adds them to the full mix, it adds that little bit of like fullness to the sound. Like I think it's really cool.
That is
And
cool.
also the dynamics and everything from playing piano in the middle of like these heavy, super heavy songs. I
Yeah.
think that's cool.
Good point.
Yeah.
And who are some of the jazz pianists that you like?
I honestly I couldn't name any right now. I don't know. I started with jazz piano and
Cool.
playing piano, so
That's
I
okay.
think
There's
that's
some great musicians from that era, all the
yeah.
way up till current. You know, Herbie Hancock, of course, just has an amazing catalog of music going way back to the traditional jazz stuff in the old days. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
How about guitar?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of them. Yeah, definitely John Petrucci from Dream Theater too. That's a big one for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love his lead playing, like how it steals a little bit from like fusion and blues a little bit too.
Yeah.
And adds like big shred kind of thing. Yeah.
That's cool. I want to
Yeah.
drop in another clip since you mentioned Dream Theater again. And folks, here's an interesting fact about this video. One, you'll see Owen emulate some crazy fingering. And you're probably still growing at 15, so your hands will probably be able to do this even more easily as you get older, which is cool. But it's amazing not only that you did this, but here's an interesting fact that you might not know yet. So, folks, I want to remind you all that, you know, I teach social media marketing, and one of the things I'm always saying is don't upload videos that are the official releases from a CD or something, because Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, they all have algorithms that will recognize that, like what I call a sonic fingerprint of the song, and it recognizes it and it mutes it, and you get flagged. So the funny thing is that what you're going to see and hear right now is Owen playing all the instruments. But when I posted it earlier today, the day we're recording this, May 13th, it got flagged because it matched. And that's great. To me, knowing how that all works is mind-boggling, because it's not so much about just the note placement and the rhythm placement and all of that. The sound of the mix has to be so close that it actually makes the algorithm think that it's the original piece. So let's check this out. I won't even give away the name of the song. It bleeps on the screen for a quick moment, and then we're going to jump to the guitar lead. Check this out. Great. So I have to ask, after watching some more of that, how describe your process, Owen? Like, do you listen to this stuff until it's almost worn out and learn by ear? Do you get tablature? Like, what's your method of learning this stuff? Like, knowing in two ways. One, knowing how it goes, and number two, physically teaching yourself how to do it, whether it's the fingering on the bass, the guitar, keyboards, or drums.
Yeah, well, I usually start with just listening. Like, usually the songs that I pick are songs that I really like, and I listen to over and over. So at that point, I know the structure just from listening to it for a long time. And then for, like, the fills and everything, I usually just, like, from by ear, like, I just listen to it over and over, and then I just play it on drums over, like, and if stuff doesn't match, I just go back and play it back. Like, I just learn it all by ear usually. Yeah.
That's cool. That's how I learned, like, growing up really young. I was playing Zeppelin, Deep Purple. As I got a little older, and when I say a little older, I mean like 10, 11, 12, I was playing long, epic pieces by Yes, Genesis, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I learned it all by ear, just like you said, listening to it over and over and over. And back then, my drums were not where I could play to the music. I didn't have like a sound system or anything where I played, so I had to learn it. You know, in those days we had these things called records. I don't know if you've heard of these vinyl flat things. Yeah. And it was like I'd hear a real cool fill, and I'd have to pick up the needle, put it back, and listen to it, pick up the needle, until, okay, I got it in my head, then run downstairs into the garage that was turned into sort of a studio, and I'd play, but there was no sound system, no record player, and then play it. And then eventually, when I was 15, I got in a band, and I got to play these songs, and I learned how I wasn't playing them right. So I had to sort of learn them all over, but it was all by ear. So it's great to have a good ear. And do you also read music?
Sheet music, I usually only read on piano. Like, I never do that for drums. Well, I guess I did for drums. That's how I started. I would learn from sheet music, but for bass and guitar, it's tabs if I use it, but most of it's just by ear. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So, I'm sure most people are wondering, when I ask the question this way, please don't feel like I'm asking as if I perceive you to be a little kid, because I don't.
Yeah.
I ask people my age and older this same question. I'm 57. I just turned 57. So what do you want to be when you grow up? Do you want to be an architect? Do you want to be a dentist? Do you want to be a professional musician, a producer? What do you want to be?
I think I'm definitely going to pursue the music industry for sure, but I'm really right now trying to just get better at everything that I can and become as well-rounded as I can in the industry so I can do whatever I need to do in the future. But definitely, I really want to record and release and hopefully tour for my own music.
Oh, that's
stuff
great.
that I write by myself. I think that would be one of my main goals. Yeah.
That's great. Are you already writing music?
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
oh, wow. I can't wait to hear that and see it.
Yeah.
Lyrics too? Or instrumental?
Well, right now it's instrumental, but I'm basically writing my stuff so that I can collaborate with different artists.
Great.
Like vocalists, singers.
So maybe have an album with different singers on your songs?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. Like part instrumental and then part featuring guitar players or drummers, and then hopefully featuring some of my favorite vocalists too. That'd be really cool.
I was just going to ask, who are some of the people on your dream list that you would want to feature, vocalist, guitar, whatever? Who would some of those people be?
I definitely want to have Maynard from Tool on some of my stuff. I think that would be super cool.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to collaborate somehow with Tom Morello would be a dream of mine too. That'd be awesome.
That's awesome, for sure. With this discussion, I'm sure people are getting a sense of a lot of the music you like and a lot of the music you listen to. I have two questions. The first question is, is there any music that you're into that might surprise people based on the discussion we've had so far? And then after that, tell me what you think most people your age are listening to. I'm curious if it's the same or completely different or what the deal is. But first, answer the first question, then we'll move into what other folks are listening to.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised. I'm actually really into Stevie Wonder.
Cool.
That's like a big influence too.
Did you know he's a drummer?
Yeah.
Outstanding drummer.
Too.
Yeah, he played on a lot of his own stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also into people like Mac DeMarco and Radiohead, like kind of more vocal-based stuff too.
Yeah. That's awesome. Great. And in whether it's your circle of friends or most 15-year-olds you know of, and you could answer it both ways if you want, what are 15-year-olds listening to these days?
Well, where I am in Canada, there's a lot of people my age listening to country, which is something I don't really like. I don't know, but yeah. And
wait, I gotta ask you a question. Do you know what happens if you play a country record backwards?
I don't. No.
Your lady comes back to you, your truck gets fixed, and your dog comes back to life.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Everything in reverse.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm sorry. What else?
There's a lot of rap for sure that people my age listen to.
Really? Are they listening to old school rap, the OG stuff, or more modern artists?
I'd say it's more popular for people my age to listen to modern stuff, but a lot of my friends, and me too, I also really like some 90s stuff.
Cool.
And hip hop and stuff. I think that's cool.
That's cool. That must seem like old school to you, whereas old school to my wife and some of our kids would be rap from, believe it or not, the 70s and the early 80s.
Yeah.
Before it might have been called rap, actually, now that I think of it. There's a lot of spoken word involved with that and everything, which kind of also goes way back to the late 50s, really early 60s, when there was that sort of almost pre-hippie scene where there'd be someone doing poetry and spoken word and someone next to them accentuating on bongos, that sort of stuff, believe it or not, is part of the roots of rap in a way.
Yeah, that's true.
That's cool. And do you like the production process? I mean, you've obviously put a lot of effort into the way your stuff is filmed, You mentioned before we started recording that you actually do the video editing. The
Yeah.
sound is impeccable. Where is your headspace in regard to the production elements and how fond you are of that? Is it a pain in the butt thing that you need to do, or is it something that you love doing as much as playing the instruments?
No, that's actually one of my favorite parts of recording it too, is making it sound like the original. Like, I work with an engineer that records me when I'm playing. We usually, after we record everything, we sit down and talk about like what we change and what would make it sound like the original. And that's production is like a really big interest for me.
That's
Like, I
great.
find it really fun to just set up the mics and go. I want to try to make the sound as close to the Black Album as possible, or anything like that.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I think it's pretty fun.
It is. There's a lot of opportunity in that too in the industry, because when I was done playing with bands, I was like my late 20s into my 30s. I got into production. I did session work, overlapped into production, and then I started producing up and coming bands. Then I started producing radio commercials and soundtracks for short films and stuff, and I loved that kind of work. So once you learn that whole thing about engineering and production and all that, there's a whole new realm of possibilities as far as career opportunities and things like that. So that's great. So, and going back to your process with the engineer, when you're recording the covers, do you play the original stuff for the engineer? Do you make sure he or she is familiar with the original stuff, and do you compare it to the sounds, or is it sort of done more blindly, if you will?
Yeah, I usually tell him like what I'm working on before so we can get familiar with it, and then when we're mixing it, or when he's mixing it, basically, we go back and forth between them.
Great.
And I might say like, oh, that needs a bit more bottom end on bass, or like stuff like that, and we would just compare back and forth. Like, sometimes there's multi-tracks, which are really nice.
Yeah.
So we could just compare the isolated drums and see like,
That's
oh, the
perfect.
snare needs more compression or whatever it is.
That's a great
I
way
find
to
that
learn.
really fun.
Yeah, it's a great way to learn production too, doing that A/B side-by-side comparison. That's great. Because then you learn how they got to that sound, you know?
Yeah.
So that's cool. What advice do you have, not just for drummers, and if it needs to be separated by instrument, that's fine, but what advice from your experience on your different instruments do you have for all musicians your age and older folks out there watching? I want you to remember that any advice for any particular age is still advice for any other age, but directed towards younger musicians. Owen, having gotten to where you are with your proficiency, what advice do you have for fellow musicians around your age?
I guess just do what you enjoy. Like, there's not. Yeah, I don't know. I guess just explore and be creative and try to do something new that nobody else has done before.
That's
and
great.
Just have fun on the way. Yeah.
That's great. What I love about your answer for the old seniors like my age is that a lot of times people go through this journey that you're in the middle of, and then they get a gig, they become professional, they start doing tons of session work, or they're in a band, they record, they tour, they do all this stuff, and they get into the business, and they kind of forget why they started being a musician. And it's important for us to all remember, like you said, to have fun. And sometimes it's a situation where we fall into a pocket and we stop exploring. So both of those elements of advice are really great. Thanks for sharing that. My last question, believe it or not, has nothing to do with music. What? So this is the Owen Davey fun fact question. And my question is, when you're not mixing, you're not producing, you're not learning songs, you're not working on your chops, when you're not tuning your guitar, cleaning the fretboard, tuning your drums, doing anything to do with music, what do you like to do? And please tell me that you do have something else you make time for.
I usually just, one of my main hobbies that, of course, like, stop now, but I also play hockey.
Oh, great.
Mostly just hanging out with friends, playing video games, and yeah, but music is like a big big part though. It takes up a lot of my time, so but I really enjoy it.
That's
Yeah.
great. What position do you play in hockey?
Play left wing or center.
Cool. And who's your favorite team?
I'm not really sure. I don't watch hockey as much as I used to, but when I was watching hockey, I really liked the Detroit Red Wings and Chicago Blackhawks. So.
Ooh, two great teams.
Yeah.
Great. Plus, in hockey, you get to fight and get away with it.
Yeah, right. Can't do that in music.
Well, unless it's country music.
Yeah. Right.
Cool. Well, Owen, we will do this again. I want to thank you so much for coming on, taking time out of your evening. And I would love to have you on when you're ready to release some of your original material. That would really be cool.
Yeah, I can't wait till it gets to that.
What's the timeline on that? Any idea?
I'm not too sure, but now that I have all this extra free time, I'm like writing songs all the time. So who knows? It could be in months or I don't know.
Great.
It's hard to tell.
Well, we'll stay in touch and have another interview even before you get to that point. That would be great. And you know you're welcome to share whatever you're cranking out with me. And we're happy to curate it on Drum Talk TV to show everybody what you're up to. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you, everybody, for following what we do on Drum Talk TV. Follow Owen with the tag in the post and be inspired and sign up for our newsletter so that you keep up to date with what's going on. And I look forward to seeing you all soon on my Almost Daily Vlog and other interviews. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. See you.